It's okay to make comebacks, to reinvent yourself. Sometimes it's a necessity. But if you reinvent yourself too much, people smell panic. The art is reinvention at the right time and in the right way. This episode is about one of the most underrated skills in life and work, the art of reinvention. Not the kind where someone flips into a brand new persona overnight. I'm talking about the slow, strategic, credibility building kind of reinvention. The kind that lets you stay relevant without selling your soul. I'm Mark Di-Toro, and for 20 years, I've worked with some of the world's most successful brands and impressive individuals, helping them grow and build influence. So let's get into it. In the early 2000s, Lego was in trouble. Really, really serious trouble. They were reported to be losing over $300 million a year. Sales were collapsing. Kids were swapping out plastic bricks for PlayStations and even at the time, Game Boys. Internally, Lego had even started building theme parks, clothing lines, and even had a failed TV show. Anything but actually Lego. Some would say they lost sight of what made them special, what their customers loved about them. But here's where the magic starts. Instead of going further into chaos, Lego hit pause. They pulled back, new leadership came in, and asked a simple but powerful question. What do people love us for? And the answer was creativity. Open play, bricks, not just gimmicks all the time. So they stripped everything back and rebuilt, pun intended, from their core. They leaned into co-creation with fans, licensing smart partnerships and franchises with the likes of Star Wars and Harry Potter, and launched a design-driven strategy that saw them collaborate with architects and adult fans alike, as well as kids. They didn't try to be a tech company. They didn't jump into any new trend. They just evolved in a way that made sense to them. And from that point on, Lego became one of the world's most admired, profitable toy brands. They're still, of course, evolving today with film studios, sustainability plays, digital integrations, but they still don't lose the soul of the brand. You always feel like it's Lego, that element of fun and credibility. The reinvention worked because it was rooted in truth. They didn't try to become something new. They became a better version of what people already loved. And this is at the heart of reinvention. And let's talk about the queen of reinvention, Madonna. This is someone who went from Catholic schoolgirl to punk provocateur, then to disco icon, Hollywood star, yoga specialist, political activist, the list goes on. But every few years, Madonna saw the cultural wave before it broke and rode it just enough to stay ahead of the curve. But what you'd notice is that she never abandoned the core image. That provocative, boundary breaking and fearless persona was always at the core. In the 1980s, she owned certain elements of liberation before it was safe to do so. In the 90s, she pivoted to spiritualism and motherhood, of course. And in the 2000s, she embraced various dance cultures and other global trends at that time, pop trends at that time. So, but through it all, she used fashion, music, and PR, a little bit of PR, to reframe who she was without ever losing control of the story. I mean, you may remember that some reinventions landed better than others, but that's the point. She took calculated risks, not reckless leaps. Madonna's skill is reading the room, evolving before the audience got bored, and never letting the narrative go stale. And the best part, she never pretended it wasn't strategic. She once said, if your joy is in what you create, you'll keep changing, because staying the same is death. Next case study is the well-known actor Matthew McConaughey. 10 to 15 years ago, McConaughey was basically a very different actor. Back-to-back rom-coms, everyone knew the formula, southern charm that he has, films that were very similar at the time, but he made millions doing it. So fair play to him. But behind the scenes, he was reported to be restless. He knew he was capable of more. So he pulled the plug. He turned down every romantic comedy that came in at the time, including apparently $14 million for one script. And he waited for a number of years. And then came that reinvention, those roles. The Lincoln Lawyer, Mud, Dallas Buyers Club, which I believe you won an Oscar for. And then, of course, the series True Detective. So suddenly the joke was reversed. And McConaughey wasn't just an actor, he was serious. He was gritty and dark and brilliant in those roles. And the shift was so stark that the press dubbed it the McConaissance at the time. But it wasn't an overnight 180. And I think that's the key thing. It was actually a carefully planned retreat from one type of fame, followed by slow, thoughtful emergence into another. He knew that if he didn't stop first, the new identity wouldn't really stick. That reinvention had to be earned over time. And that's the difference between a gimmick, which you'll probably see a lot of, and a legacy move. But reinvention isn't always solo. Just ask Sir Alex Ferguson. Reinvention doesn't have to be personal. Sometimes the smartest leaders, leaders know that they can't do it alone. And one of the clearest examples of this is Sir Alex Ferguson. He didn't just reinvent himself, he reinvented Manchester United over and over again across nearly 3 decades, which is unseen in today's sporting world. Of course, across that period, you can't just build one team. He built 4, each with different players, different tactics, different coaches, different cultures. The easy thing for him to do would have been to stick with the blueprint, his first winning blueprint. But he didn't, because he understood that what won the league for Manchester United in 1994 wouldn't win the league in 1999. And what worked in 1999 wouldn't then win the European Cup in 2008. He knew football was evolving, faster play, global talent coming in, new technology, and that hanging on to the winning formula from 1994 was actually the fastest way to losing. So what did he actually do? he changed everything, really, from formations to training methods. He changed all his backroom staff over time. He reinvented the whole structure, every layer of Manchester United. The only thing that didn't change was, of course, him. But if you're going to be in that situation where you stay for a long period of time, you have to make sure you evolve everything else. And by the end of his career, Ferguson was rarely even seen on the training pitch with the players. He became a pure strategist, focusing on relationships, psychology, and the longer term decisions. And that's what a lot of people miss about reinvention. It's not always about flipping your identity. Sometimes it's about changing what you do, who you rely on, and how you structure the world around you. Ferguson's genius wasn't just in talent spotting. It was knowing when to get out of the way, to elevate others, to build new frameworks, and stay ahead by evolving the ecosystem below him. And that's real leadership level reinvention in let's say, a more corporate structure. It's also why he didn't just win once. It's why he won multiple times over many, many years. Well, for 26 years, in fact. So one of our favorite sections of the podcast is when we really dive into, well, we've explained the what. And now with the psychological insights, I explain the why. So why did this actually work? And so what's really going on under the hood here? And it's something called cultural intelligence, CQ. It's the ability to read shifting social, political, and emotional norms and adjust your behavior accordingly. And this was studied mainly across different global cultures, but I think it's relevant here. It's like EQ, emotional intelligence, but for culture. Psychologist David Livermore defines cultural intelligence as a key predictor of success in globalized, fast-moving worlds. High CQ individuals and companies, they know when to adapt, and that's what we've seen. They know how far to go, what to preserve, and what to lose. McConaughey had high CQ. Madonna, of course. Lego, they built their comeback on structural and cultural insights. Alex Ferguson, because he was there and the boss for nearly 30 years, realized he had to change everything underneath him. But there's another element here, and it's the psychology of identity change. Studies show that humans are surprisingly comfortable with evolution if it happens gradually and feels authentic. Radical shifts, not so much. And this is known as the consistency principle. People, think about it yourself. I mean, you like a story that makes sense. When a person or brand flips completely within a short space of time, our brains scream that it's inauthentic. But when reinvention is layered, strategic, and there's a real sound narrative, I think we root for it more and we believe it. And there's another concept which I've spoken about on previous episodes, which is called the narrative identity theory, which is probably more related to Matthew McConaughey. It's developed by psychologist Dan McAdams, which says we define ourselves through evolving life stories. Most powerful reinventions are the ones that feel like natural next chapters, not simple costume changes. So the way I take this is you have to have the ability to take a step back the ability to understand if things around you need to change or you need to change. Sometimes both. And that could be in business, in life. It doesn't really matter. And I think reinvention really isn't always about changing you, and that's what people always think. But in most of our worlds, it's about changing what's around us, the structure, the system, and how you work. I think what I may have seen as well is that people can sometimes get stuck in that, not because they lack vision, but because they didn't adjust to the environment that they were then operating in. They tried to level up and progress and make it all about them inside a structure that was built very differently. And therefore there was nowhere to move. So if you're leading a team, anything, a business, or even just your own life and your career, you've got to think about what needs to evolve around you and not just within you. And I think that could, what does that look like? That could be shifting responsibilities. It could be redefining your role, building in new layers of support, trying new things. Sometimes letting go of the things that you've been doing for a long time, not because they're broken, but because they're not needed anymore. And they no longer belong to the system that you're in. And the truth is, reinventions that last, the ones that create new chapters and growth, don't just upgrade the individual, they upgrade everything. And quite often, actually, you should prioritize what's around you rather than just yourself. So begin that quiet work. Have a look at how you spend time. If you're working for a company, the dynamics of the messaging. Do you need to tighten the strategy? And not with a loud relaunch on LinkedIn. That's not necessary. It's all about, I've said this a few times, and again, there's that theme emerging: subtle, steady, compound moves that change the course of things over a period of time. And what I think and what I've seen is that if you get that right, the rest tend to follow. So as we end every podcast now, it ends with a challenge, or at least something to think about for this week. And why don't you identify one cultural or industry shift that's happening in your world right now? Let's maybe keep it to work. It's a bit simpler to create a scenario, and can be a bit broader. So something you're seeing in workplace, in your industry that you work in. This takes a little bit of research, of course, but really try to find something, and ask yourself, how can you position yourself ahead of it? What is a small reinvention in that world? A skill, a message? Is there something you can tweak that would put you at the forefront of that, put you a step ahead? Get you to become a specialist in that particular area. It takes a bit of time to think and do some research, of course, and then come up with a plan. Of course, the obvious ones, it could be AI, it could be analytics, it could be how new investors are coming into your space and shifting what's needed. But start to have a think and then see if you're interested, if it's something you think could add value to your job, your life, your business that you run, then try to put that practice in place. And remember, you don't have to shout about reinvention, like some of my high profile examples. Just start doing it. So if you enjoyed this, then please hit follow wherever you get your podcasts. Speak soon.